right, and we are live. So, what's going on, everybody? This is episode 4 of the Froz-Øne podcast. We have a very special guest. She doesn't really need can't speak. No introduction, but I'm gonna give her one anyway. Natalie Hinds. Natalie, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, of course, of course. So just a little info for some people that may not know your accolades in the swimming realm and just in general. Kind of just give the audience just like kind of a rundown of who Natalie Hinds is and what she's been up to.
Yeah, I am a Midland, Texas native, and so for people who don't know where Midland, Texas is, it's Friday. The basis of Friday Night Lights. I feel like a lot of football people would understand where it is, but it's the most West Texas you can get. There's nothing there, so like swimming there is really rare. But I swam there, grew up there, and went to the University of Florida for 4 years from 2012 to 2016. And had a really successful college season or college career there. Um, and was able to be a multi-time SEC champion, SEC Freshman of the Year. I swam 100 free, 100 fly, and 50 free pretty much every year. And then swam all the relays. I swam the 800 free relay at one time in my college career, and then I decided to retire and was out of the sport for about 2 years. And then I decided to go back to the sport and start my professional career. And I moved to the University of Georgia to do that in 2018. Stayed there through COVID, through the cycle of 2021. It was able to make the 2021 Tokyo US Olympic team. And so that was a really cool experience. And then at the end of 2021, I moved back to Gainesville. I was able to make a couple world's teams before I decided to retire in February of this year. So I'm learn fully into the adjustment of life after an elite sport and learning every day, every week is something new, a new problem, a new triumph. So just kind of back in that learning stage and very grateful for my career and, the things I was able to do and the platform that I'm able to have through swimming.
Oh, that's awesome. I actually did not know that you took a break in between going from collegiate to professional.
Oh
I
yeah,
learn something new every day.
yeah. I did not want to swim after 2016 trials, and I worked for 2 years in corporate America and was good, but I just was like, I'm either gonna have to do it now or it's never gonna happen. So I decided to put that life on hold and then come back to swimming.
Right, right. That's awesome. I was gonna
Yeah.
say, so what are you doing right now since you're in the lovely retired life?
So right now, I just took a job about a month ago with a digital marketing agency. My major is
Okay.
communications, and I love everything digital. When I wasn't swimming, between my college and professional careers, I worked at Turner Sports in Atlanta, and I built the March Madness app. So I have a little bit of experience in digital products. Um, so yeah, right now I'm learning a new job and learning what life is like in an agency setting, which is kind of cool because it's very fast paced, kind of similar to sports. Like there's always something new going on, which I really do like. But yeah, just kind of honing my skills in a different space. But I'm still in Gainesville and kind of really out of the college scene, obviously. Like there's two sides of Gainesville, and so I'm kind of on the like regular person side, which I enjoy. But like this weekend, I was at a tailgate. I was at the Hall of Fame ceremony, so I still do get to like be involved in stuff, which I do like.
That's awesome. Like staying involved, even not in school. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Do have a question. So I think you're I guess the second besides Dax that's kind of in real world corporate America, like you said. You said like the agency realm, it's fast paced, kind of like how sports is. Do you think like the sports, like that mentality that you had as an athlete gave you an edge compared to like someone that wasn't in sports in that kind of realm?
Yeah, I actually was like writing a blog about this earlier today about like transferable skills. And when I first stopped swimming, I've had a job before this. I was in medical device sales, and I just found out it really, really quickly. It just wasn't for me, which is okay. And that's part of the things that you learn when you're not in a black and white world, such as swimming, whether you're fast or you're not. Like there's really no in between. And um, yeah, you have skills from swimming that kind of give you an edge, like the natural ability to be competitive, and always like looking around trying to be better. So, yes, you have them, but in this new world, you kind of have to like switch your lens and figure out how best you can use those skills because you're not going to use them the same way that you did in swimming. Like my time management skills are not going to be used the same because I'm not being told what to do anymore necessarily. Like I don't have a practice schedule. Like I have to create everything that I do that day. If I want to be productive, I will. If so I had to learn like I need a schedule, whether I create it or someone else creates it. I have to have structure. And so, in a long answer to your question, yeah, it gives you an edge being an athlete, but there is a like lull where you have to learn like I had to learn what is required of me in this new role and like in everyday life, so that I can like refocus like those skills that I have from swimming.
Totally, totally. Yeah, because I always get told like over and over, especially like in our advisory, like they're always like, "Oh yeah, athletes have such more advantage compared to everyone else because we have such rigorous course load." But then they also forget like we're not always getting told what to do in the real world anymore. Like it's on us. Like we don't have like a coaching staff or like a side staff like helping us along the way. It's like it's all on us now, and I think that's one thing a lot of athletes take for granted sometimes.
Oh, for sure.
But
Yeah,
for
there's
sure,
no like there's no one telling you like, yeah, you're doing great or like this is the answer. There's none of that anymore, and so I still struggle with that, like knowing like is this what I'm supposed to be doing or so that's why I definitely still stay in swimming because one, I love it and I'll always love it, and two, I feel like because there's not that many Black people in swimming, it is my duty, but I also want to just like further that and give that opportunity to others who want to be good at swimming and don't see a lot of people that look like them. But it's important to have a balance of like stuff you really care about that you can do so that you always have that bucket filled while you're still trying to figure out what job do I want? What career do I want? Because you have to do it for a really long time. So I'd hope that you really like to do what you're doing.
oh, oh, obviously, of course,
Yeah.
that's an essential. That's an essential. Um, Kind of switch it up, not switch it up, but like change subjects. Like swimming, we've been swimming for a long time, but going back to roots, you're from way west Texas. Like how close is El Paso to you? Because that's like how west I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, it's like 5 hours.
5 hour. Okay, so that's still damn. I be forgetting how big Texas is
Yeah,
sometimes.
Texas is big, but I would say like the Hispanic influence on Texas,
Yeah.
especially West Texas, is like I
Uh,
flew back home for a speech. I want to say like 2 months ago now, and I have not been back to Midland in like 3 years, and before that it was like another five. But I'm always just like it's such a culture shock because I forget and I get into like Houston or Dallas and like a lot of Spanish is being spoken. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta reframe because like I'm like getting back into West Texas. So but that's home. That's how I grew up and
I think we lost you for a second. Hold on, I'm gonna pause it real quick. All right, we're back after some technical errors right there. Um,
my bad.
but no, you're good.
But yes, oil and football. That's all that's there.
Yeah. Oh, pretty similar to Kansas.
Is
I
that where
haven't
you're
been
from?
there. I've probably been there. Yeah, I'm originally from Wichita, so I've
Ooh.
probably been there a total like yeah, 2 3 months in the past 3 years. So not
Yeah.
much of it is like I get that culture shock indeed. But I mean,
What's
you said it yourself. Wait, what are you gonna say?
I was gonna say, what's the culture like in Kansas? Because my culture is like very like it's very heavily like Hispanic Hispanic focused. And what's life like in Wichita?
I'll say it's the region. I'm real inner city, so I got the mosh posh of everything. You go more northern, you kind of have like your Mexican culture. I'm South Side, so I had a mix of uh, kind of just like everything.
Yeah,
But I mean,
good.
my whole entire friend group in high school was diverse. I hung out with black kids, Mexicans, Muslims, like the whole
Mm.
entire like shebang. Like that was my whole entire friend group growing up. And then of course you had my swim realm, which was
Yeah, very
majority
different
white,
group
but
of people.
very, yeah, non-diverse. But um, I mean, there was still like that culture, and then you had your school culture. So it was like a melting pot of so many different things. So I like kind of like understood it all. Like I'll come over here and I'll do certain things at a house, and they're like, "How'd you know how to do that?" I was like, "I got culture. I got culture. Just
Yeah.
chill out."
I feel like that's the best place to be in though, and that's kind of the reason I went to Florida is because I walked on campus and I felt like normal. I felt like there was
Hmm.
diverse. There was just so many different types of people. I'm super tall. I'm 6'3". I felt like there was other girls who were huge, and it just wasn't a huge deal. And I feel like growing up in a space like that, I never really like felt uncomfortable because I'm like a very confident person. Like I'm like, yeah, this is who I am and this is what I do. But I just felt like I could kind of blend in and do what I needed to do at Florida. And so that's really cool that you have grown up like that because I feel like a lot of people definitely in this day and age do not grow up with diversity in their pockets.
Totally. Yeah, no, totally agree with that. Um, but what was I even getting to the? Oh, because of you said there wasn't a lot of swimming. How'd you even get into swimming in the first place? Always
Um,
curious.
yeah, my neighbors had a backyard pool, and I have a sister who's like 5 years older than me. And my mom loves to swim. She's like a master swimmer, and
Oh,
she just wanted to make sure we like knew how to swim. My sister was on the team, so of course I wanted to be on the team. Um, but my sister and I are like very opposite. She's very intellectually gifted. She's an engineer. I am definitely not an engineer. I'm very athletically gifted, and so she stopped in high school. Like she just did it, because she was good at it, but it wasn't like she wanted to do it. And so I kind of took that as my own, and that's kind of how I got into it. But she's the reason I got into it, but I loved it and I just wanted to beat everybody. So that's kind of what kept me in it.
right. Totally. I was gonna say that's actually pretty cool. Trying to be like big sis. But being in that area of Texas wasn't a lot of swimming. You said there was a lot of like that Mexican culture all around you, probably some other like melting pots, like you said. Um,
Yeah.
you were also really tall, so I'm assuming there was a bunch of people that would always be like, "Hey, why you not playing basketball or like doing a different?" Did you get a lot of that growing up?
Oh my God, I get that. I get that probably 3 to 4 times a week still to this day. And
Still.
yeah, so yes, to answer your question, I mean, I did do basketball. I didn't do volleyball. I did basketball seventh and eighth grade. Well, I did like the YMCA basketball and was on like a really bad team. And I was really, really pissed off all the time because like I was not bad, but everybody was bad. And so finally I got to like join the like really good basketball team like in the league. And so that was fun.
AAUs,
Huh?
like the AAUs, or like was it still in the Y?
Yeah, so, like, when I did it, it was, like, by your neighborhood grouping, so you didn't really get to, like, pick your team.
Oh,
So the girls that I was with were nice girls, but they just, like, were not good at basketball, and, like, all the other girls who I did go to school with, we just didn't live in the same area, um, they were on a team, they were really good, they also played, like, club soccer, like, they'd fly to Dallas, like, they're very athletic girls, and so I was like, "I wanna be on that team." So finally, like, my 2nd and 3rd year of doing it, I did, basketball in middle school, 7th and 8th grade, and then, did track, And so I was growing a lot, and so I was doing all 3 sports, and I actually ended up breaking my hip in a track meet. And so that was kinda like my look, you my parents were like, "Look, you gotta pick, like, you can't do all 3." Of course, I thought I could do everything because when you're young, you're like, "Yeah, well, it's whatever, I'll be
I
done at
know.
8, and then I'll do homework and, like, do it all again tomorrow," but, yeah, that was kinda like a wake-up call, and, I chose swimming because like, I loved swimming, like, that was, like, always gonna be number 1. I was just doing the other ones because, like, they're still fun, you know? Like, you've done, like, high school sports, like, you do it for the social aspect too. Um, but once I chose swimming, like, I really was kinda removed from social activities at school, especially once I told my parents I wanted to go to the Olympics and that I wanted a full scholarship. My parents are I wouldn't say that they're, like, super hard on me, but they ran a tight ship for sure.
Oh,
So once I said goodbye to all the other sports, it was kinda like, "Yeah, this is my focus now."
yeah. I definitely attest to the tight ship once, because dad said, "Hey, if you can do something, go ahead and do it, but you ain't gonna be no middle of the line."
Yeah,
So,
like might as well do it before the window of opportunity closes, and you're like, that's how I felt like when I came back. I was like, "I gotta do it now or else I'm never gonna be able to do it." But, yeah, my parents were very strict. They were like, "Okay, if this is what you wanna do, like, this is your curfew." And I had the same curfew from, like, 15 to 18. Like, it did not matter what was going on. Like, I had to be home at an ungodly early time of the day, and I used to be so mad, but now that I'm older, I understand. Um, but yeah, I had to get certain grades, like, not even by school standards, just by, like, my household standards, I had to get certain grades. Um, the times I did mess up, I did face the consequences, and so, like, it wasn't like these were empty, promises, like, they enforced rules, and, um, I think it made me a better person today for sure.
for sure. Yeah. Gonna say, never had a curfew, but, definitely
I'm jealous.
remember
I really
those. Well,
it was really
m my rule was, weekdays, I wasn't really out, unless it was, like, a Friday and it was a football game or something like that.
yeah.
Weekends, I was allowed out. I just had to be back at a reasonable time. What a reasonable time was, I don't know
I was gonna
until they
say, what
text me and be like, yeah, they'd be texting me. It's like, I think it's about time to come back home. So I'm like, all right, deuced out.
yeah,
But
go.
yeah, no, I totally understand that.
You have any
To
siblings?
say, I have a half brother, but he's like so much older than me. And he lived with his mom. So
Okay.
I was basically raised as an only child, so I
No
had the full
example.
attention. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say full attention all the time.
Mhm.
Um, and then going back to like the dual sports, like my both my parents were both track and basketball.
Okay.
So I got the track piece. I grew up, I was always running track. I was gonna ask, what did you do when you ran track?
200, I wanna say, and 400.
Oh, so you know the pain of the pyramids. Oh man, the
And the
pyramids
thing is,
killed
though,
me.
like, I'm a sprinter for everything in life. Like, I don't have
Yeah.
longevity for anything. I don't have patience. Like, I really, really have to practice patience, like, in anything I do. And for, like, track practices, like, I would be wiped out. Like, I'd be the first done. And same with dry land and swimming, like, in college or anything, I was the weakest link, and so when I became a professional, I was like, "I'm not doing dry land." Like, I never did dry land. I never did conditioning or any of that. I was like, "I just don't need to do it."
Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. I was gonna say I'm not gonna say I'm the opposite. I hate, and I mean like with a capital H, hate boring and repetitive stuff. Like if you throw me into like a distance practice, I'll be like, no, I can't turn
Yeah,
off my brain off like that.
I'm with you.
Drylands, I need. Yeah, I was gonna say I just can't do. That was my punishment back when I was a kid.
It's a
Like
monotony.
doing distance sets. Like I remember there was one time. This is during a track practice. I was think 13, 14 at the
Mhm.
time, and I used to run up because me and my homeboy Elijah, he runs at Texas now.
Okay.
He's like a 400 runner. We were doing pyramids, so it was like a 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, like 2 times.
I hate that for you.
And yeah, it was brutal. But we were on the 400. I don't remember where our pace was supposed to be, but we were not on pace by any means. Like we were running sloppy, just dead. Coach at the time, her name was Shamoya. She's like, she knows that we're not like really even trying because we looked at each other. We're like, go like 80%. She ain't gonna know. She knew instantly. She's yelling at us like, boys, you better be moving. And like we're
Yeah.
like not listening to her. All of a sudden, we hear huffing and puffing behind us. We turn around. It's her chasing after us. When I
Oh,
say
this.
like we was scared for, yes, she was sprinting at us. And she's Division 1, like uh I think AAC champion and stuff like that. So we was scared. It got us to the point where we were sprinting, hop the fence, and like was dusting.
Wait, what
We
age
was
were you?
scared. You said what?
What age were you?
I was I was like 13, 14.
Oh, okay.
Maybe 12. I don't know. All I know is we were running against like the 15 to 18 year olds, and we were like 3 or 4, we were like 2, 3 years younger than them. And
Okay.
then as soon as we got back from hopping the fence, she threw us into distance and they were running 600 repeats. And I was like,
You learn to
"Mm,
always give 100%. Pretty much.
yeah, but no, that you kind of dry, even dry land, like you would tap out on dry land.
Stadiums, snakes.
Okay, yeah, yeah. See there you go. That dry land, yeah, I'm good.
Like, I mean,
Mm,
the like abs and the like all the other like BS part of dry land, I didn't
mhm.
mind. But the older I got, the more I wanted dry land for me. The older I got, the more I realized like no one's built like me. Like I haven't seen anyone who's like truly built like me. So, I learned that lesson in my professional career, which I think really helped with my success of like really leaning into like this works for me, this does not work for me. And obviously there's a lot of pressure. I'm sure you felt it like even maybe with some of your teammates who you guys swim the same things, but you may go about it different ways. Um, and I went through that a lot. Like joining Georgia and being the only person not on the national team for like a whole 2 years. It's easy to be like, oh wow, like they're doing that. I need to do that. And I tried it and it just
Mhm.
didn't work for me. And so you just really have to learn like I'm not doing dry land. Like I'm just not. And really like being confident in your decision, which is really scary. But I mean, I think swimming in life parallel and I'm gonna find that lesson out in my real life at some point. Like I don't need to do this or I do need to do this. Um but yeah, no dry land for me. No running.
That's nice. I was gonna say, um, I I wish. If I told Mike no dry land, he would probably laugh at me. But our dry land here is, I would say, completely different than your traditional dry land. Like you think of
Yeah,
dry land, like what you said, the stadiums and stuff. Alabama is probably the most non-traditional program I've ever seen.
yeah,
Um, Especially like Margot's philosophies on sprinting, and Mike's, they kind of have the same like mindset. They're really on that specification and stuff like that. Like our dry lands, well, right now they're pretty deadly.
yeah.
Doing the assault bike, lots of pull-ups. But then we also have like the fast twitch stuff, reactions, med ball, explosiveness, and then
Mhm.
we transitioned that into the water. So
Yeah,
um, it was definitely a lot different than like dry land I would have back at home in a club setting, which I
yeah,
hope it would be anyway. But
yeah.
um, no, I was gonna say I really like how you said like be confident in like your stuff. Did you say like your coaches? I know, actually I don't know. Would your coaches both at Florida and Georgia, would you say they were kind of like okay with like that, not the confidence, but just like you like saying like that sort of stuff, like I know what I need to do. I know that I don't need to do dry land in this sort of way. Like were they like kind of push back at the beginning, or were they like all in for it from the get-go?
So I'll even like pan out further than just dry land. Like When you're a
Mhm.
professional swimmer, if you have aspirations to be a professional swimmer, like you'll encounter this, but um, depending on where you train, and I say that to
Mhm.
say like in a college setting, it's a little bit different, like because you're training with a college program, so they do things their certain way, and if you're professional, maybe they're lax, maybe they're not. But to answer your question, my head coach at Florida was Greg Troy, legendary coach. Um, really believed that like I was really good and really recruited me off of potential. And then you have Jack Bowerly, who's also retired, legendary coach. Both have been on the Olympic teams as head coaches, like I think over 2-3 times, like crazy. The list of people that they've worked with is insane. But Jack and Troy are different because Coach Troy is like um very they both train a lot of yardage, I will say that, but they go about it very different ways. Coach Troy, he was a yeller. That's how he tried to motivate you, and whether you responded to it or not, like that's on you and how you're built as a person. But Jack didn't yell. He is one of those like aura people. I've never experienced that before with a coach other than him. Like he would be on deck and we'd be doing like repeat 50s, like hard. So like they'd be on a minute. I love 1-to-1 ratio swims. So like 850s on a minute. So I'd be going like 24s, 23s from a push. And he would come on deck and he'd be like, "Nat, we're going 22." I'm like, "Okay." And I would just hit a 22 because I'm like, well, if Jack thinks I can do it, I can do it. And I would just do it. So, like, and also, like, I was in college. So, really, in college, as you know, like you said, Mike would laugh at you. Like, you don't really tell your coaches, like, what you're going to do. And looking back, I think I could have done a better job advocating for myself because when I tell you I'm on the lowest end of the yardage spectrum possible, I'm on the lowest end of the yardage spectrum possible. And the only reason that I'm able to do the yardage that I was able to at these places and specifically at Georgia is because I went to Florida and I had the base. And like in 100-meter freestyle, like the last 15 meters, like you have to finish. Like there's no other way you're going to be successful without that last 15 meters. So in college, I didn't advocate for myself. And I'll tell you a story about like the pinnacle of like finally believing in what I was doing personally. Like I don't know if you've ever heard of Olivia Smaliga. She's a 2-time Olympian. She swims backstroke and 100 back, 100 free, 50 back. She's a backstroke specialist. Um, she was my training partner at Georgia. That's my best friend through and through, like still to this day. And when you train against your best friend and somebody who swims the same thing as you, like, and who's on the national team and who has American records, like you can get kind of like, what am I doing? And so Liv and I would train the same, and I was just not seeing the results that I wanted. And I was like, you know what? I don't need to swim as much as I'm swimming, which is kind of crazy though, because like you don't really ever have those thoughts. Like you're like, okay, I got to go to practice and swim this. I got to do this. And I really was like, I don't need to do all of these doubles. And I don't need to do all of the yardage when I do a double. Like I need to pare it down to just power, warm up power, and I'm done. And I sat on this for like a month. I even had a meet and I swam terrible at the meet, like truly atrocious. And I was like, okay, I'm making this team and like if I'm going to do anything I can to do this. And so I walked into Jack's office and even before I could get anything out, I just busted out crying. And he was like thinking something really was wrong. He's like, "Nah, what's going on?" And all I really needed to tell him that I finally did, I was like, "I don't think I need to do 3 doubles." And he was like, "That's what you are upset about?" And I was like, "Yeah, because you don't want to go against the philosophy of someone that is so successful." But I finally had the realization that this is my career. I have to take full advantage and ownership of my career. And we worked out a schedule that I stuck to. And it was really hard because that third double, like I'm at home, I'm not doing anything. And I'm like, oh my God, they're at practice. Like, what are they going to think of me? This, that, the other. Fast forward 2 months later, and I won a best time at like a pro series. And so that was kind of like my first time and like the start of the momentum towards the games of like, no, what I'm doing is working for me, and it really doesn't matter what anybody else is doing, like what Liv is doing, what my other teammates are doing. So Jack and that program at Georgia was a lot more lax than Florida was. Florida is much more routine, much more like we're doing this, we're showing up here, this, that, the other. So you kind of have to really over communicate with your coaches if you really believe that like something is better for you. And I kind of found that out like later in life, like at age like 26. But that's basically how I got to like be successful and like really believe in myself at that point.
That's sweet. I was gonna say I like the contrast. I was because I really was gonna ask you about like Coach Troy, and then did you ever get coached by Coach Nesty?
Oh yeah, I mean like when I came back here for my professional career
Right,
at Florida, yeah, that's my coach.
Florida.
In
Yeah.
college, he was my coach probably for mostly fly sets, some
Mhm.
like underwater sets, a lot of underwater sets with him in college. But yeah, I mean, he always looked after me and stuff, but he didn't get to coach me as much as he did like now that I was an adult.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you a question, but I was gonna get to that a little later. But no, I like the contrast, like you said, like Florida is really like, we do this, 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 and then it's like you kind of at Georgia learn this stuff. Um, I feel like that was similar with me coming in, like as a freshman, like you're a freshman, like you don't know the ways, like you kind of
Yeah.
just like do what you're told. And then
Right.
as I got older and like got my processes and stuff like that, especially with our new coaching staff, I feel like the biggest thing that they've done that I feel like has benefited so many people is they listen to all their athletes individually and
Hmm.
not just like, oh, this is how we normally do it. This is what we're gonna do. Like, no, like especially Mike. Like, I know I said like he would laugh at me, but at the same time, we're on the same like mindset for a lot of things. Like, um, the way he trains me is because he knows like what has been beneficial for me in the past because like we'll have like monthly conversations, talks like even within a practice to like modify sets so it can be the best setup for me. Like for instance, we've been having a Monday set where we do uh 50s from a push with fins. Objective is to be 19s, hell, probably actually 18s with fins and paddles. But
Yeah.
you got restrictions. So for the longest time, it was like 6 kicks and 3 cycles per 25.
Mhm.
But they purposely dropped me down to 5 kicks, 7 strokes. So it like I'm not getting as elongated, but like my tempo and my pace is a lot better, so I'm able to like perform it in a way that they want to see it.
Yeah.
So it's just like different stuff like that that I really get. Like they know like certain kids need to get more yardage than others. Like that sort of things are, I feel like necessities for coaches sometimes. Like
Yeah.
definitely keep your traditions, like and stuff like that. But at the same time, like I feel like we're in a new generation of swimming where it's like there's more specification per athlete than just everyone gets the same thing no matter whether you like take it or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that like old school method of coaching, which I think I got like the tail end of with all my coaches, was like, yeah, this is what we're doing. Sprinters may get like a little modification, but like, at Florida, like it's already known we already do a lot of like everybody knows we do a lot of yardage, and like our sprint group is most people's mid distance groups. And so, like there's small modifications that can be made because we do have pure sprinters who show up at Florida. And so, like anywhere, like you have to modify for them, or, for like physically you're going to break them down. But I definitely agree with you with like modifications for everyone. And I'm not saying like everybody's got something different to where you can't even keep up with it, but there is power in like mentally with your coach coaches, like, yeah, my coaches care about me. So they've changed this for me with the hopes of like, I will do this. And I think truly, like in my journey in swimming, like your mentality is so important. Your approach is so important, like even down to each rep of the set. I have been in sets with Liv where we're going head to head, and her underwaters, like, I'm not bad at underwaters, but she is like so good at underwaters. And my walls and my starts are my strength. And so when we'd be going like head to head on a Saturday practice, it would take every fiber in my brain to like mentally lock in because I was not going to lose and she was not going to lose. And so the attention to detail that you have to pay is like, I'd be mentally exhausted after those practices. Like I would just and it wasn't even necessarily physical. Like, of course I was tired because we were racing, but the mentality that you have to have for extended periods of time is something that I don't think like is told enough, I guess. And so when you have a coach that gives you something that you can really bite into and focus on, I think that really helps like yourself, your confidence. Like you can really be like, all right, he told me 6 strokes. Like, all right, I did 6 strokes and this is my time. Now let me try and bring it down. I think those small little details with coaches and that back and forth with swimmers is really, really important for like success, like at big meets in real high pressure situations.
Yeah, exactly. I always tell people like it's always your mindset, especially whether in practice, whether it's in a meet. Um, the mentality you bring into practice is the mentality you're gonna have in meets. I have had several teammates, both present and in the past. They always complain. I'm like, dude, you got to stay positive. You got to stay positive, or else you're gonna bring that negativity to the meets. They didn't listen, and then it bit them in the butt at the end. But I mean, that was something I also want to talk about, like that mindset, that mentality of like, Olympic level champions and stuff like that. Uh, you said that you would bring that almost every single day in the water because you had your training partners that would, whether they beat you on the underwaters or like different sort of training styles. How did you like continually maintain that? Because, there is a time where you can constantly go, 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 but then all of a sudden you hit like a roadblock and then it's like hard to keep that going. Like how are you able to manage like an Olympic level mindset day in and day out, if even?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think like that's naturally how I'm wired. Like I have to be the best or it's gonna like eat at me. And not
Right.
necessarily like the satisfaction of like beating everyone, although that is great, but also like just being able to do something better and better. It gives you a dopamine rush that I feel like we're all trying to chase. Um, so yeah, like you talk about plateaus. And so like when I first started swimming again, I moved to Athens in September of 18 and it was like 10 weeks of training. And we had my first meet back. I didn't tell anybody I was swimming again. Like I literally woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning when I was still living in Atlanta and would go swim with the masters and like did that for a month and then moved to Athens and didn't tell anybody. Besides my parents and the people who were in Athens knew that I was swimming again. Um, because that's just not my style. Like I don't like to be like, I'm back. Like that's just not me. But my first meet back after 10 weeks was like Georgia State Championships. It's like with 18 and unders pretty much. And I was so embarrassed because like, why am I having to race against like 16-year-olds? And I felt bad because I was like, I'm gonna win because these are 16-year-olds. And again, if I'm not going to win against 16-year-olds, then I might want to rethink this comeback. But I was like, I feel like I'm robbing them of like a state championship. But nonetheless, it was the first day was on my 25th birthday, 24th birthday, one of the two. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm so nervous. Didn't know how I was going to swim. 10 weeks in, and I go all best times from times at NCAAs, like been putting in the work and still, like still being able to blow those out of the water 2 years later. And so I think from then on, I was like, I need to give myself more credit. And I think that's kind of where the mentality comes from. And knowing myself so well, of knowing like I am very critical of myself, very much a perfectionist, very much hard on myself if I don't think it's perfect. And that is a detriment for sure. Um, but once I was like, all right, I actually am thinking like I'm going to make the team, nothing else matters. I think that's how you like have that mentality. I think the way you can continue it, like give it longevity, is balance. So like leading up to trials, like I literally had no life. And I don't mean that in like the sad way, but I didn't want to have a life. I was like, this is what I'm doing right now. Like I don't care about anything else. I had nobody over at my place to hang out. I ate like I had like a set, not menu per se, but like if I didn't make my own food, I wasn't going to eat it because it was like a mental thing for me. Like I didn't eat out. I didn't like I knew everything that was going on with my body, which is what gives me confidence. Um and I think there's something to be said about that type of mindset. Like I'm going for something that like 1% of people are going for, even care about. Um so that's kind of how like I look at a competitive killer mindset. How much more locked in can I be than everybody else? And I think by the time I got to trials, like I was so in my own head. Like I always describe it as like I was walking around with like up armor around my head because I was there for myself. I was there to prove to myself like that this comeback was for this. And so everything else was water under the bridge at that point. And so much so that I remember walking to the 100 free final and they had these huge jumbotrons like in the back area of the pool. And I was literally walking towards the first ready room and I look over and I see Nick Fink, my teammate at the time. He just made the team in the 200 after he missed it in the 100. And I literally remember thinking, I'll think about that later. Like I saw it and like just let it go. And I think that is like a really good example of like, I did not care about anything else until I like made this team. Um, but then after I made the team and was at meets and like ISL and all sorts of things that like you're across the world and you're experiencing a whole new country, you have to have balance. Like you have to learn how to unplug and like replenish because you can't sustain that. Like you truly can't. Like that killer mentality that will eat you alive. Like you're in this like flight or I always mess this up. It's like flight or fight.
Fight
Fright
or
or fight.
flight.
Yes. I always mix the words up, but yes, that. You're in this emergency, like your body's in this emergency state and it just cannot be sustained. Like it's not healthy at all. And so that's kind of where I learned like, Nat, you gotta chill out. Like you have to go out every once in a while. You have to go see your friends. Like go talk to your friends. So the longevity comes with the balance, but the um, those internal goals are what kind of creates that mindset.
Totally. Just know I'm definitely gonna clip this because there was a lot of good points that you said, especially the
Thank
balance. Um, yeah, a lot of people always text me like, "How do you keep your mindset?" And I tell them all the time, it's the mindset. People or like the balance. People always worry about the end goal. You need to worry about the journey. The people that you are around. Um, the positivity, like making sure not only are you grinding, you keep that killer mindset by both, yes, putting in the work, but at the same time, enjoying the work that you put in, as well
Mhm.
as, like you said, unplugging, getting out, having actually breathing fresh air and not the poisonous chlorine air every like
For sure.
24 hours.
Yeah.
But no, I just always tell them it's like you just gotta live life and enjoy it while it lasts. But no, I really that balance is probably the perfect word to say how to achieve that like Olympic level mindset. I'm 100% for that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but no, I'm gonna switch it up. Um, two big things that I wanted to bring up, ask you
Yeah.
how you feel about this. So, I'm sure you're probably well aware of this because you're part of it. You were part of the first ever 1, 2, 3 for all African American finish in a single event at NCAA's. It
Mhm.
was you, Simone Manuel, and Leah Neal. What what was like your emotions going through that? Like, did you even notice when you first did it that you guys went 1, 2, 3, or was it just like, oh, cool?
Yeah, I've been asked this question a few times, and I feel so bad answering with the truth because the truth is like I literally was so pissed off that I got third. Like, wasn't worried about who beat me. I was next to Simone, so I knew she had gotten first, but I was so pissed that Leah beat me because she always does that. Like, she really knows how to get her hand on the wall. And I'm like, damn, she beat me again. Like, I was really pissed. But at the time, we still had the 400 freestyle relay. So, like, to be honest with you, I didn't really think about it because I was just like, whatever. And my dad, like, so my dad goes to all my meets and he was at nationals and he like told me that. And I was like, I could care less. And I feel so bad being like, that's my reaction because it's literally like never been done before and who knows when it'll be done again. But as I got home after nationals, I was overwhelmed. Like overwhelmed by the Black community and like Ricky Smiley morning show. I was on there. Like I was like, oh my God, this is actually a big deal. And so now I definitely am grateful, very grateful about that. I think nobody really thought of that between the three of us because we did have another swim. Like the meet's not
Right.
over and like 100 free on the last day followed by another 100 free is really a brutal way to finish the meet. I'm sure you'd understand. And so
Yeah.
like that's kind of where our heads were at, but no, I didn't really think about it, but now I feel like now I can say like I've regained my gratitude for that moment because there like I see Josh swim and like I know Josh on a personal level and I have trained with him and I know how amazing of a human being he is and so it's crazy when you're in it because like when I saw him win nationals as a freshman in the 100 free, I'm like I'm so happy for him as a person. I'm not even thinking about like our Black community because that will come. Like, obviously, I'm gonna think about that afterwards, but I'm just when you're in it and you can attest to this, like, you're just trying to win. Like, you're not like want to be the first Black person. Like, that's not how I felt when I made the Olympics. I was like, oh my God, what number am I to have made the Olympics? Oh, 4? Damn, that's
Right.
kind of crazy, you know? So those are being a Black swimmer is an interesting experience for that reason. And that reason being like you have a lot of stuff you're carrying, stuff you don't even know you're carrying, um, and responsibilities as well to kind of pass it along to the next person. And so, saying that answer to you, I'm like, damn, I could have done a better job. I really could have. I could have even posted about it, and I didn't. But now I know like how important it is and how you know how important the little things are and not just those big moments like that but like the smaller things like I was at my old club team and it is predominantly white as Midland Texas is but I was doing a speech there at this like block party that we were having and there was like two other Black people there out of the like 150, 200, which for me isn't crazy because that's just like how I grew up there. That's just how it is. But I love Midland to death. Like very like I felt very comfortable, but there's like two little Black girls who wanted to come take a picture with me. And like I think Natalie in 2015 would have just taken the picture and gone on about her life. But now that I'm older, I'm like, wow, this is definitely what it's more about. It's like being inspiring for those who like do not see people who look like them in their area. But yeah, that's a long-winded answer. But yes, I'm much more appreciative of the moment now.
Okay, I was gonna say, you said that, and I had to really think back. I'm like, wow, she's not wrong because like I always say like I tell people like the reason I swim is to like expand the Black community in swimming. But then when I think about it, like what you said about Josh and like what you said in the back of your head, I was like, if I hit the wall, I would definitely have not been thinking about like, oh snap, this is the first time something like this has happened. Like I'm gonna tell you a story. Mike's gonna actually no, Mike's gonna find this hilarious. So Atlanta Classic in May, 50 free. I'm trying to get my Olympic trials cut. I went think 22.85 in the prelims. So, I'm trying to get locked in and whatnot. Have my headphones in, just not even paying
Wait,
attention.
what was it?
For
It was 22 like E2?
I was 22.85 in prelims, but then in finals I went 22.81. So I missed
Was
it by like 200ths.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, what is it, 7-9 or something?
Yeah, it's 7-9.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So like we're all lining up on the block. Like I'm not like we were all like chopping it up in the locker room, like everyone in that A final just chopping it up, not even thinking about anything, lining up. And Mike, I miss it. I'm like, I'm just pissed. I'm like, dude, what the
Mm-hmm.
things going in my mind? Mike comes over, he's trying to like bring me up and stuff like that. And then like 20 minutes later, I get done with warm up, and he comes back. He's like, "Yeah, I wasn't gonna tell you until like after you warmed down and stuff like that." But he's talking to this one coach. And I was just like lining up. I didn't even notice like that whole entire A final. It was Georgia Tech's a 10-lane pool. Out of the 10 lanes, I think I counted it. It was seven. It was at least 8 people that were four or like non like white.
Yeah.
And out of the eight, 6 of us were African descent. And he was
That's
like,
pretty sick
"Yeah, I was
though.
talking." Yeah, I was like, he was talking to like one of the coaches. He's like, "Damn, there's a lot of brothers in this seat." I was like,
But like
"But
people don't
I'm
know how to act when that happens. They're like, damn, where all these people
exactly
come
like,
from? It's like
yeah, because
crazy.
it was like because it was me, Julian, Nikolai Blackman from Tennessee, Lamar Taylor, who just transferred to Tennessee, David, and there was one more. I'm blanking on who it was, but there was at least one more dude in that
Was
heat.
Josh not there?
No, Josh wasn't there.
Oh,
He just got finished with Canadian trials
oh, okay, okay.
like a week or two before.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I mean, that is a perfect example of like,
oh no, it
I
wasn't
mean,
Miles. Never mind. Miles was in the B.
oh, okay. It's like a perfect example. Like people are not used to that so much so that we are not used to that. Like, and even
Exactly.
how there's so many non-white people in the heat, like you guys are not looking like, oh my God, wow. Like you're really just focused on you. And I think I remember my dad being like a little upset at me, like, do you not understand how big this is? And so, like, for these
Yeah.
reasons we're talking about now, it's like, I'm not like actively putting this moment down. I'm just like really in a different headspace. Um, and so I think that's why it's so important to be reflective and like really give the time because there's like a meet I think in Fort Lauderdale is like a grand or a pro series and they brought the boys and girls pub and none of these kids were swimmers. It was just kind of it's part of this program where they like bringing the doing a community outreach type of thing. And I'm like, it's important to like go spend the time to talk to them because who knows, like maybe one of them will be like, oh, I kind of want to swim now. Like this looks really fun. I mean, they're literally at one of the probably the biggest swim meet that they'll see in person. Um, and so I think it's just so important like to have that reflection. Um, but like you said, people are like very confused when they see like loads of black people in the pool, given the history, as we know.
Oh yes. The history is. I was gonna say my grandma wasn't even allowed at public pools growing up
That's
because
like
of
the
like the Jim
craziest thing
Crow and
I've ever
stuff.
heard. Yeah.
I was, but that's a topic for a different day. We'll say that.
Yeah, that's like a whole
But
nother podcast.
that's a whole nother podcast right there. But no, like I was really wondering what your like answer to that was, and now that you say that, I'm like, damn, she's not wrong. But
Yeah, you're just
um,
locked in. Yeah.
yeah, you just locked in because like it's like you said, like I don't care like how many melanin brothers here. I'm just trying to out touch them.
I'm trying to
Like
win.
so,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to win. So no, I definitely hear you on that. But the other kind of like big thing that I was going to talk about, like we already talked about Coach Troy and like his perspective, but you also had Coach Nessie. And for those who don't know Coach Nessie's accolades, he's the first man of African descent to win an NCAA title,
Yeah.
first one to win an Olympic gold, and the first head coach. of an Olympic team of
Hmm.
African descent, and kind of just because you've gotten to train under this man for several years. Um,
Yeah.
how is he like? Just how is he like as a coach, and what was it like being coached under a man with those sort of accolades?
Yeah, he's amazing, as you know. He is the most humble person I've ever met in my life. He does not like to talk about any of the things that you just listed, and almost kind of shies away from it, which was very puzzling at first. And when I first met him was when I was being recruited, and it was like kind of an awkward conversation because you kind of just have to know Nesty to know how he operates. He's very even keel all the time until he loses it. And like he's kind of like an elephant where like you just don't want to get to the point where he loses it because you're like, oh my God, he's not messing around. But he is like full of personality, but like you have to crack that barrier first. And he doesn't let many people in. And so I think that's the allure with him. Like he is mysterious to those who don't know. And uh but he is an amazing person. And to train under him it's a mix of always knocking at your ceiling, always being uncomfortable, and always being in a routine. Like my dad is very big on routines. I've had a routine my whole life. Like I could tell you where my dad is right now because he does the same thing every day. And not to say he lives a monotonous life, but the things he needs to get done, he will get done at the same time every day. And Nesty's no different. And so that's what I like about him. Like, if you have parents who are great role models, like you kind of gravitate towards people in your circle who kind of like emulate some of their characteristics. But Nesty is like he loves like armed forces stuff, like the boys. Like when I was in college, I used to go like with the PJs like every January, and they'd go there for a day and just get their ass whooped. And like Nesty loved it. Like he loved that, like just being a badass. He has so much respect for them. So training under him was definitely always like pushing the ceiling for me. And um, it's like you do a set and it's like 4 rounds of something. And by the second one, you're like, damn, I'm tired. By the third one, you're like, oh my God, like I'm cramping up, I'm tired. And then it's like he always has it built in to take you just a little bit further every time, no fail. So I hate and appreciate that at the same time. And I already have this appreciation for a routine, but he kind of just like um makes me appreciate that tenfold because I've been to when I was at the Olympics, he was an assistant coach. I've been on Worlds 2022 when he was the head coach. And I loved that like nothing changed about our routine. Like from being in Gainesville to being in Hawaii or being in Croatia or being in Budapest, like with all the craziness that happens at like an international meet like that, like you know what you have for the day, you know what's expected of you. Um, and like that brings a lot of calmness to a situation like that because there's so much emotion, like at the beginning of a meet, the roller coaster during a meet, but he's always even keel. Um, but yeah, like obviously I know him on a real personal level and like, close with his wife and his daughter. And so it's really nice to have someone like that in Gainesville be able to look after me and care about me and always check in and go over to his house for dinners on Sundays and Easter. And yeah, I'm very grateful that came back here and had him as my head coach. And so, and also like just because like he gets it, like he's been before and he's way before you and I both swam, and he understands. Um, like when I signed my deal with when I re-signed my deal with Arena when I moved to Gainesville, like we had to sit down and like how am I going to influence, like how am I going to use my platform pretty much. And so he definitely cares about that. He's always thinking about that. And just to have people around you to like bounce ideas off of and like be your biggest supporter is really, really important. I think for the Black community in the sport of swimming. And so to have him be one of those people for me is I'd say pretty awesome. And so if you do ever get the chance to say hi, like I think you definitely should. He would appreciate it for sure. You may not think he does because of the way that he is like very chill, very to himself, but he does appreciate it.
Very nonchalant. Yeah,
Very nonchalant, the
he's
most nonchalant for
very
sure.
nonchalant. Yeah, I love that. No, you. I think you just made me 10 times more jealous just saying all that. But no, I love it. I love that. Shout out to Coach Nesty for all that. I was gonna say none too much more. I always like to finish off these podcasts with kind of two questions.
Mhm.
Really, the biggest one is role models of role models. So, who was the role model of Natalie? And then kind of just tips for the younger generation to help them improve themselves.
I would say okay, so I was like really hard-headed growing up, so I really didn't look to anybody else like that I should have. So I didn't really have any crazy role models growing up. I would say my dad is one of my biggest role models because he displays consistency and in the face of like crazy adversity, like he is steady and he's going to get what he needs done regardless. Um, and then as I grew older, I think my role model became my younger self. So like when I'm like when I was like 2 months out of trials, I started looking through like old pictures of like me when I was a kid. Because when you think about yourself as a kid, like, or if you hear a kid and they're like, I'm gonna be a firefighter. Okay, go off. Like they're like, there's no doubt in my mind I'm gonna be a firefighter. Like the confidence is crazy. And that's kind of what, as we grow older and our plate becomes more full, I feel like that's where our doubts start to come in and we're like, wow, maybe like this is not what I want to do. And so whenever I had doubts, like leading up to trials or even just really like now that I'm older, I'm like, what would my younger self say? And most of the time I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like just do it. If you think you want to do it, just do it and try it. If you don't like it, then pivot and move on. So I would say my dad and then me at like 6 who like just didn't care. Um, and then advice for younger swimmers. That was right, right?
Yeah.
Advice for younger swimmers. You kind of hit it way earlier in the conversation, talking about the journey, not necessarily the destination. But I find that your transformation happens in the journey and not once you reach the destination and after, if that makes sense. So, like, my advice would be like, if you look around, you do not see another you, like truly. And I know that sounds kind of cringe, but it is very true. Like there's no other Natalie Hinds, there's no other Drayden Bell like ever. And so what works for you will work for you. Um, you can take advice from people and, I got really good at people and leaving the rest of what they had to offer respectfully to the side. Like a coach, for instance. Like if I had a coach I didn't like at Georgia. I'm not going to say who it was, but I had a coach I didn't particularly like to work with. But once I realized like he actually has some good stuff, it's just me who can't get over whatever the personalities that didn't match. Um, I respected him so much more. Like I took what he that I could use and respectfully left the rest at the door. And so my advice is to just take what you can from people and be curious, ask the questions. And always know that like your journey will not look like anybody else's. And that even goes to like warm-ups. Your warm-up at SECs or your warm-up at NCAAs, like it won't look like anyone else's. And in times of doubt and like tension, like you could be like, oh, maybe I should do an extra 50. Like, ooh, do I feel good? Like you stick to what you know and don't worry about what anybody else is doing. And I think that when you lean into that fully is where you start to see like confidence in yourself and like transformation. So definitely focus on the journey, and really get the advice you can and stick with that, are my two pieces of advice for young swimmers.
Awesome. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
um, swimmers watching, take notes. Um, but no, um, no, I really appreciate you coming on here and just kind of speaking about life and all the other stuff. Really appreciate that.
Of course. Yeah. I love talking about this stuff. And I feel like if anybody ever has any questions, I would love to chat about it. But yeah, like swimming is obviously such an amazing sport. And I think especially for the Black community, like we've done a really good job because I see a lot more Black people on deck than I did when I was swimming. But obviously we could always be better and really foster the next generation. So I think this podcast is such a cool idea. And I'm very honored to be a part of it.
Yeah. Amen. And thank you. Really appreciate that.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
everyone that watched today, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.
perfect. Thank you.
Uh,
See ya.